Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Kerrville Weekly News Roundup, hosted by the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. We are your co-hosts and founders of the network, Andrew and Tom Fox, here with you in the studio on this sunshiny afternoon, Friday afternoon at that. So happy Friday. Thank you for joining us. We're going to run over our top news picks for this week, third week of April. Time's just flying. It's crazy. Okay. Let's jump right to it. Tom, you wanna kick us off there, sir?
Sure. I have a couple of stories, Andrew. The first is that the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation is taking applications for membership. This is the city organization that deals with quality of life projects here in Kerrville. They look at financing, construction, if any, maintenance, operations oversight, and really oversee the projects that bring the great hill country lifestyle to Kerrville, and that even people like me who live in prestigious West Kerr County get to take advantage of. I know. Do you live in Kerrville proper?
Yeah, we live in the city. We're in the city.
Okay. Well, then you get to take advantage of it.
That's right, but not the prestigious West
Kerr County.
But we were at the West Kerr Chamber Mixer Words Banquet last night.
Well, you're going to have to give us a few words on that. So if you live in Kerrville, this is really a great organization to be a part of. It's an important organization for our city. One of the things that I love about this area is it's as good an example of participatory democracy as I've ever seen. If you want to get involved in your local government, you can. And I know you're going to talk about upcoming elections, and we've had people that said, I think I got something to give to be on city council, or I can serve. Well, you can serve on city council, you can serve on a committee, you can serve on the Kerrville Economic Development Corporation or Improvement Corporation. The second story is the Museum of Western Art celebrates 40 years today. And it is, the jewel in the crown of the Kerrville museum scene. And indeed, for Western art in America, they routinely are designated as top 5 Western museum in America. But this weekend, they're having a series of events to commemorate and celebrate 40 years. It's going to be very family friendly, interactive exhibits, food, drink, some Indian dancing, some line dancing, some Texas music. Daryl Beecham and his team over at the museum have put together a fabulous couple of days of events from 10 to 4 on Saturday, and I think 1 to 5 on Sunday. So if you've never been to the Museum of Western Art, it truly is a great treasure. It is an international treasure, but it's our treasure here in Kerrville. Daryl and his team have won top tourist attraction for several years running in the Kerrville Weekly Times newspaper poll and survey, and the last 2 or 3 iterations of the top Western museums of America, it's been on that list. So kudos to the Museum of Western Art. And if you haven't been there, check it out. Or if you've been there, go back and celebrate 40 years of great Western art.
And they have an exhibit that's starting this weekend, right? That's the theme is 40 years and that is, I'm excited about that. I know I'm taking my family and we're going to make some time, I think, in the next couple of weeks, because it lasts at least, I think it's a couple months long, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe till July.
Yeah. So we're excited about that. I'm excited to go see, because it's not just one theme as some of the exhibits that I've seen in the past. It's their 40 years. So I know Daryl has picked out some artists in particular that have not maybe had art that's shown up there before. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you, Tom. And for myself, I just have a couple of quick mentions. The early voting begins this coming Monday for the city and school elections here. So the KISD school board and the city council elections. And we've talked about that on here before. There's plenty happening there. We got 2 candidates up for city council, and 1, I believe, for the school board. So, and speaking of that, this past week we had a candidate forum that was held at Schreiner University, and it gave a platform and a place for these candidates to come and state their case, speak their mind. They actually answered some questions at random, and we had a friend that does a community show here, Louis Amestoy with Kerr County Lead, that actually streamed that live. It was great. You can find it on Facebook if you want to rewatch that. I know that evening when I got home, I actually watched the whole thing. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was worth mentioning. And then the weather, I didn't want to get away without the weather. I don't know. Did you get rain last night?
We got no rain, but we got the most fabulous lightning show.
Yeah, really, man. Because we actually got both, and I was so glad to finally see some rain coming here because I know we need it really, really bad. And it looked like at first glance over on this part of the south side of Kerrville, where my wife and I are at, it looked like it was going to rain for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then it gave up. And I was like, really, that was it? All this, because you could see the clouds rolling in, and then finally after it got dark, we got some more. So that made us happy. And I think we actually have some scheduled for this upcoming week. So we'll see if that plays out to our favor. And I wanted to mention a couple of other things real quick. I saw an article because, I read the Wall Street Journal, and there was an article about Chip Roy gaining some national attention there in the Wall Street Journal, mainly around his stance and the discussion he's been having with his constituents about the debt ceiling. So, if you're out there and you follow that kind of stuff at the political level, because he's a local guy here. His office is right here, just down the street from us here, and he's got some pretty stern stances about the debt ceiling and how to handle some of that. So wanted to mention that. And then last but not least, a couple things. The Kerrville, so Kerrville has been selected as a partner with NASA. I believe there were 10 locations that NASA named as prime spots, or I don't know the exact wording or language they use, but viewing areas for the upcoming eclipse that's happening April 8th of next year, Kerrville being one of them. And that was super exciting. I saw that all over social media. I think that's going to, good or bad, that could give us some extra attention that might make, traffic and maybe some travelers that maybe were trying to spot a location and maybe they'll come here, whereas they were thinking about somewhere else beforehand. But nevertheless, it's good attention and publicity for our local area here. And the last thing I was going to mention was last night we went to a West Kerr County Chamber. So the West Kerr Chamber is actually separate from the Greater Kerrville Area Chamber here. And they had their annual awards banquet at Inn of the Hills last night. And it was an eclipse themed get together, and they had Jeff Stone, who we've had on he was the second episode of our Eclipse podcast here on the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. He was their featured speaker last night. It was wonderful, and like I was just telling Tom before we hit the go live button here, I had been to some West Kerr Chamber events previously, but it's been quite some years since I've been there. But there was tons of people there, so they have obviously had a lot of growth out there in the prestigious western part of the county. So, and I think that's it for the news mentions. Tom, you got anything happening this weekend that's exciting, worth mentioning?
The weather is beautiful. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep it or not, but what I'd like to tell our listeners, Andrew, is about an exciting new podcast on the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. It's From Last to First, the John Assetti story. I met John Assetti on my Hill Country authors podcast. He'd written a book on profiles and leadership of Kerrville business leaders. Well, it turns out John was 93, and he has lived an extraordinary life, and I convinced him to tell his life story. So we're going to do the John Assetti story, and it's a fascinating story. It's just one of many in Kerrville, but it's one that I was able to take a deep dive into. So I hope our listeners who know John, or those who don't know him, will check out From Last to First, the John Assetti story, only on the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network.
And I'll be sure, thank you for mentioning that, Tom. I'll be sure to go back and post that in the link in the comments here. And I was also fortunate enough to hear from John Assetti firsthand when you invited him to speak at one of our events, and just a fascinating gentleman, and he does have a fascinating life story. So I'm glad you were able to do that project with him. I think that's great. And for myself, I don't think we have too much other than trying to enjoy the weather. We have a really busy Saturday tomorrow. We have like 3 family events we're going to, but I'm excited for the weather to be 76 and sunny tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that. And then hopefully I'm okay if Sunday's a little rainy and dreary, as long as we can get some more rain and fill our river back up. I was going across the G Street Bridge this morning and took a peek at the river, the corner of my eye. And I was like, come on, please be don't look so bad. And even after the rain last night, it didn't seem to make too much of a difference. So I know we need the continued rain if we're so lucky to get that. Okay, guys, I think that'll do it for us. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a safe and fun weekend. Get out and enjoy the nice hill country weather, and we'll catch you back here next week. Thanks for tuning in.